Now, in order to abandon yourself to divine providence, you've got to trust God. Now, if you don't trust God, who are you going to trust? It is an insult not to trust God. How do we abandon ourselves to divine providence in this culture of self-reliance and success-driven society? Okay. Very important principle. If you can learn principles, you can solve all kinds of problems. Learn principles. You know, it's kind of like the old adage, you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or you can teach a man how to fish and he can feed himself for a lifetime. This business of learning principles is like learning how to fish. You learn a principle, and by the application of that principle in a diverse number of cases, you can solve all kinds of problems. I'll try to address this from a couple different angles. How do you abandon yourself to divine providence? It's difficult. That's another way of putting that is, how do you trust God? How do I have confidence in God? One of the essential elements of that little way that St. Therese taught so beautifully is confidence. Absolute, unbounded confidence in the goodness of God. Trust, in other words. You know how in the Divine Mercy devotion, the picture of Jesus, the Divine Mercy, it says under it, Jesus, I trust in you. This is tied into this. Trust is huge. Now, in order to abandon yourself to divine providence, you've got to trust God. Now, if you don't trust God, who are you going to trust? It is an insult not to trust God. I've been in difficulties in my life that I look back on it and I can't even imagine how I lived through it. Bad spots. I mean, I've been in spots because of my own stupidity. I've been in spots because of circumstances. I've been in spots probably that were the result of what I now do and the attacks that come as the result of it. I've been, and this continues. I'll tell you this. I want to ask you before I forget. I always ask people when I preach, please pray for me. I am painfully aware that I am dead meat without you. I'm toast without your prayers. I couldn't make it another day. You have no idea how dangerous this is. No idea. You think Iraq is a hot zone in a dangerous area, and it is. Oh man, this is somehow, and it's logical. Millions of people know who I am, for better or for worse. Now, the vast majority of those people are perfectly sane, normal, decent, rational people. But when you take any cross-section of humanity, a small but significant portion of humanity is either insane and or malicious. And when you do what I do, the enemy, the devil, and he's real, and that's a part of the doctrine of the faith, and if you're Christian and don't believe in the existence and activity of the devil and the fallen angels, then you're a heretic in plain English, okay? We don't like to talk plainly today. We like to beat around the bush. You know, people don't seem to have the spine to be able to take reality. That's reality. The devil is real, a fallen angel, powerful. God permits the battle. Why? There's no glory without a battle. No one ever received the Medal of Honor who didn't go through hell. No one was highly decorated for combat who hadn't gone through a heck of a fight. No pain, no gain. No cross, no crown. If you're going to do anything good for God, you're going to get your butt kicked on a regular basis. Now, in the end, you will prevail, because if God is for you, who can be against you? However, you will be tested. You will be tried. And I've been in places where I've been so distraught, so scared. I wake up in the middle of the night on a regular basis, including last night, sweating, scared to death. And it's then that I have to resort to that trust, abandon myself to divine providence. If I can't trust God, who can I trust? Don't insult God. Like our Heavenly Father isn't strong enough to take care of you. I've had financial difficulties at times in my life. I know some of you do too. It's hard. You struggle. Let me remind you of something. You are a child of God. God is your Heavenly Father. Now, my daddy is God. You know how growing up, when I grew up in the bad section of town, and the kids, sometimes little kids say, well, my daddy's bigger than your daddy. My daddy can whoop your daddy. My Father is God. You know, the devil has been assuring me since I was a little child that he would destroy me. And he's pretty good at destruction. And he'd come real close with me. And he hasn't stopped trying, by the way, just so you know. Don't think I've escaped. I'm still in the battle line. And he is still taking his shots. And he's good at it. He's way more powerful than I am. But he assures me before it's over, before this war is over, he'll have me. He'll destroy me. I don't converse with the devil. I refer him to my Father. Take it up with God, my Father. Oh, I'm going to whip your butt. I'll have you in hell forever. Take it up with my mama. My mama wears combat boots. And she will break her big toe off in your pointy tail. Don't be messing with me. You mess with me, you mess with God. Simple as that. God's my Father, Mary's my mother, period, exclamation point. Move on and don't be afraid. Trust. You got to trust. Trust God. Now, how do you do that? How do you rely on divine providence? Do not be formed by the spirit of the world. That's a spirit of destruction. You know, the spirit of this world has got the devil operating behind it. Got to have God's spirit operating in your life. It is an act of the will. Love is an act of the will. Love is not merely a feeling, an emotion. There's an emotional component, but don't reduce it to love. Just like you can't reduce leadership to management, you can't reduce love to an emotion. Love is much more than an emotion. Love is a decision. Trust is a decision. One of the greatest errors in contemporary society is that we operate on the level of emotion rather than decision. Intellect and will are the highest faculties of a human being. Emotion has to be controlled. Emotion has to be subjected to the intellect and to the will. I know what's right. I must do what I know. And sometimes I have to do violence to myself, exercise self-discipline in order to do that. How do I abandon myself to God, to divine providence? I just do it. Like the Nike commercial says, just do it. Just do it. I can't forgive my brother-in-law. Oh, my sister-in-law looked at me funny 25 years ago. I just can't forgive her. How can I forgive? Just do it. Just do it. I remember when I started basic training, we had a training cadre that was very interesting, very experienced, very good. And they would work us to the bone, and at the end, when we were going to the mess hall, there'd be a chin-up bar right next to the mess hall, and you had to do 25 pull-ups to get in to eat. Now, in basic training, a lot of the guys they didn't come in there in great shape, many of them, and so that was like an impossibility. I can't do 25, and they'd argue with Smokey the Bear at the door to the mess hall. I can't do 20. Oh, son, I can't do 25 pull-ups. Just do it, boy. Just do it. They made you do things that were impossible. You know, that's kind of what leadership is about. You take ordinary people and you bring them to do the extraordinary. Ordinary men doing extraordinary things. That's what leadership is about. How do you trust God? How do you abandon yourself to divine providence? Just do it. Just do it. Oh, but I can't. How can I forgive? Just do it. Just do it. Act of the will. Love is an act of the will. Don't go by emotions. If you're going by emotions, you're like an animal being led around by the nose, and you'll end up in bad places. Intellect and will.